Hairballs in cats. Is it common? Is it normal? What's the difference, right? And if you're here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I'm Dr. Katie Woodley, the natural pet doctor, and this is our weekly coffee talk with the doc, where we talk about all things cats and dogs and how you can help improve their lives using holistic medicine, making sure you're finding the root cause. So we're not just treating symptoms, but we're actually healing the body. So if you're excited, give me a thumbs up, let me know. And then, of course, drop your questions, your comments in that comment section. We are talking about hairballs with cats. So who here has a cat that might have a hairball issue, right? You may think hairballs are normal, or have you heard that hairballs are normal? Here's the thing, hairballs can be common, but they're not always normal. Now, a little bit hairballs can be fine, right? But this is the thing, if you are seeing hairball after hairball and it is happening more than maybe like once or twice a month, we need to be talking about why. Why is that happening? Is there something else going on that you might be missing? And it could lead to other health problems down the road for your cat. So this is something that you always want to be asking, regardless of if you have a dog or a cat. Why is my pet doing this? Really, really important. And it's a commonly missed question, and it commonly leads to the mistreatment to actually heal the body versus treating the symptoms. Now, let's think about, okay, well, what is a hairball, right? When we're talking about hairballs, and a lot of times, hey, Innovative Pet Lab, good to see you guys. Glad you're here. When we think about hairballs, a lot of times pet parents unfortunately think that their cat's coughing, or if it looks like they're trying to bring something up, or even just vomit in general is a hairball. And that is a false realization. Now, hairballs, you should be seeing hair. So if your cat is bringing up something and you truly want to call it a hairball, there should be hair that you're seeing. It's usually compacted. It's usually like in this tubular form, because as your cat retches it back up, it has to pass through the esophagus, which is a tubular structure, which then compresses it down. And then that's why we see this like tube, like slimy mass of fur. Okay, that is technically a hairball. If you are not seeing hair when your cat brings something up, that is not a hairball. That could be vomit from another underlying condition, GI upset, pancreatitis, inflammatory bowel disease. And then if you're also just hearing them coughing and retching, that could be something like asthma. It could be a completely unrelated condition, completely different type of treatment protocol that we would be looking at. So we need to look at and actually identify and diagnose the right thing. So when we're talking about hairballs, you need to be seeing that hairball and what your cat's bringing up. Now, they may be retching, trying to bring it up, and they can't bring it up. In worst case scenario, they can lead to things like obstructions. I've actually worked with a client whose cat had three foreign body obstructions from compacted hairballs. Hairballs can lead to an issue, and this cat had an underlying condition called inflammatory bowel disease, IBD. So this is also why, if this is happening all the time, it is not a normal thing. It can be common, and it can indicate, remember, check engine lights coming on, can indicate that there's an underlying health problem, which is really, really important. And so when your cats are grooming, they're ingesting hair. When we look at their tongues, they have the spiky tongues, right? If any cat's ever licked you, it's really rough. That's to help them groom, and they're grooming off the hair. And what happens is that when they ingest that hair, if their digestive tract is working the way that it's supposed to, they can actually process that hair, and then they tend to poop it out. So you might see the like fur in the actual stool. Now, the technical term for hairballs that you might hear your veterinarian describe them as trichobezoars. Trichobezoars. Super fascinating, right? Like, don't worry, it's a hairball. They all mean the same thing. Now, why might we start seeing issues with hairballs? There's a couple different situations. I've already alluded to where we might see a problem with hairballs. And this is where if we have an over grooming situation. So if your cat's constantly grooming themselves, so listen up if you have a cat that's bald and they've groomed themselves like where they are losing fur, that's an over grooming situation. So this is where, why are they over grooming? We have to ask that. Really, really important. Why are they over grooming? This could be a stress or anxiety issue. It could also be allergies, which we need to figure out why, right? With anything, why are they doing that? Where is that coming from? They could have digestive issues where they're grooming, they're self-soothing their like bellies to try to ease the pain that they may feel from the discomfort of their gut. They could also have, say, like a urinary tract problem. So cats that are prone to cystitis, usually it's a sterile issue, sterile cystitis, meaning it's not a bacterial infection. A lot of cats will overgroom their bellies, and it's commonly misdiagnosed. It's not a normal thing to overgroom your belly. So we need to be looking at, is there a gut health problem? Is there a stress issue? Is there an environmental problem that we need to address? Is there an immune system issue? So if we're seeing this, and I saw someone post, my cat brings up yellow in some hair, we should not be seeing bile, which is the indicator of the yellow, in the vomit with, even if we are seeing hair. That can indicate that we have something else going on and that cat's not able to process the hair that they're naturally grooming, and that's why they're bringing it up. And we also, once again, as a reminder, we need to be looking at how many times is my cat bringing up hairballs. So you need to keep a journal because it can be hard to forget, like, was that last week? Was it the week before? With your crazy busy lives, right? We all have crazy busy lives. And we think we can remember things really clearly, but sometimes we don't. I know I don't. So if you're alone or you don't feel alone, if you're also in that camp, I am right there with you. And that is why journals are really helpful to get an idea of how frequently is this happening. So then we can look at, well, what do we need to look at? Are there certain diagnostic tests that we need to be looking at? So if you have a cat that's doing this, where they're bringing up hairballs like every single week, multiple times a week, or if you're like the client that I'm working with who their cat has had foreign body surgeries because they actually get obstructions from the hairballs because they had inflammatory bowel disease, we need to look at diagnostics, right? Now, if you can't do diagnostics, okay, that's fine. Diagnostics are really helpful. I'm going to give you like gold standard. This is ideally what you could do if you could do all the things. That way you have the options and you can ask your veterinarian when you go in for a physical exam to see what you can and can't do maybe right now. But when you have diagnostics, it speeds up the process because you know what you're treating and you can rule out other things. That's really important. So if a cat's like vomiting all the time, we need to know, do they have chronic pancreatitis? Do they have inflammatory bowel disease? Are they low in vitamin D? Do we have inflammation in the gut lining? Do we have, like calprotectin, looking for leaky gut? Do we have an immune system issue? And there's a lot of great companies now where you can actually do those tests by ordering the test online. It gets shipped to you directly. You send in a stool sample and you get a report. We're going to be talking to Innovative Pet Lab, Dr. Betsy Redman, on Tuesday next week about diarrhea and the holistic approach. So definitely join that on Tuesday, or make sure you're following us on our platforms, on our YouTube channel and our Facebook. So that way you can get the replay if you can't make it live next week. But these diagnostic tests, they're tools to help you, because who here has ever bought like all the supplements and now you have a supplement graveyard and you're like, well, that didn't work. That didn't work. I tried that. That didn't work. I don't know why they still, like, I changed the food. It didn't work. They're still like bringing up hairballs. They're still vomiting. They still have diarrhea. That didn't work either. Has anyone else been there? Have you been there with like all the supplements that you've tried and it doesn't seem like it's working? This is where those diagnostics can really help. So rather than spending money on the next supplement, I'd rather you spend money on some of these diagnostic tools and tests to figure out what supplement do we actually need in the first place, or what diet change do we need. It's going to make your life much easier. It's going to help your cat and your dog. These principles also apply for both. Get better much faster, and you're going to feel more confident you are on the right path. So this is where An exam, get them examined. Make sure that your vet is listening to the chest, listening to the lungs. They are feeling their abdomen. They're feeling that pancreas sits right in the front part of the abdomen. That's really, really important to make sure that they are getting a good feel. Are we feeling any like lumps and bumps, any thickening of the intestinal tract? They also can do tests like pancreatitis tests. So SPEC FPL is a blood test that your vet can run alongside a CBC biochemistry profile. That's like your main blood work that's going to rule out liver issues, kidney problems. If there's an infection, is the gallbladder having issues? That's going to be very, very helpful. And then, of course, the tests that you can order yourself would be things like the microbiome test from Animal Biome. So kitty biome is what you would use, where you can order it yourself. You can send in a stool sample, and we can actually see, do we have an overgrowth of bad bacteria? Are we lacking diversity of the different types of bacteria that should be present in the gut, that are going to help digest the food, that are going to help modulate and speak to the immune system, that are going to help produce hormones and vitamins and minerals? That microbiome is really, really important. So if you have a cat that's not processing the fur that they're naturally grooming in the right way, that could be leading to the symptom of hairballs and having too many hairballs. Remember, every now and then is a normal thing. That is okay. But if it's consistently happening, we need to look deeper into what is the root cause of this. So we have our microbiome test. We also have the test from Innovative Pet Lab that you can order too. And you can do a comprehensive test where we're looking for inflammation of the gut lining that can lead us to things like, oh, do we have something? Maybe we're prone to like inflammatory bowel disease if our calprotectin levels are high. Do we have leaky gut? That may be leading to the allergies, why our cat is over grooming, because of that gut skin connection, that gut skin access. It could be leading to anxiety because we have leaky gut and the gut brain access, and it's making our cat feel anxious, and they're over grooming and they're getting, stressed more easily. So those tests can be an identifier for where we need to focus on with our treatments. Now, so I always want to bring that up. Now, if you can't do that and your cat's doing this, we also can use grooming, right? Where we help them so they're not grooming as much. So especially if you have a long-haired cat, this can be really helpful. I know with my senior cat, making sure that they're not painful too is really, really important, and a part of the physical examination and asking your veterinarian those questions too, because a lot of times if our cats and our dogs are over grooming a certain area, it can actually be related to pain. So osteoarthritis as they age, if there's something else going on that's creating inflammation in that area, our pets try to self-soothe by grooming that area to make it feel better. The grooming and the licking actually releases endorphins. So it does make them feel better, but we want to make sure we're not missing the reason why they're doing that behavior. So this is where our senior cat, Kiwi, she tends to be kind of my more nervous kitty. She has some osteoarthritis in her hips. And so I see her groom a lot more, and she's our one that's more prone to hairballs. And so I make sure that I'm also helping her with getting, like, we have a grooming brush. I brush her every single week to remove any excess fur. And then also when you're done brushing them, it's nice to take a wet washcloth and you can run that over them. So that's going to help remove any excess fur and dander too. So that way less is going into them. So that's really, really important to help them so that they're ingesting less of the fur. We want them grooming. That's an important part of their hygiene. It's an important part of who they are as a cat. And so, but we can do things to help them to reduce the amount of fur that they're eating, that they're ingesting. Now, the other big key thing here is diet. And this is where we talk a lot about species appropriate diets for cats. Cats are a true obligate carnivore, meaning they have zero requirements for carbohydrates. Now, if they eat any type of carbohydrate, it's usually going to come from if they're eating a mouse, we think about if they eat the intestines, we have the fermented grains and seeds that mouse ate, and the cat will ingest that where it's already a fermented, broken down product. So A little bit of that is not a bad thing, and it also helps feed the microbiome. But our cats have zero requirements for carbohydrates. Now, the problem with a lot of diets that cats are on today is that they're on kibble diets. So, these dry food processed diets, they're over 50 to 60% carbohydrate content. And our cats are not made to digest those types of diets. And what can happen is because of this, it can lead to imbalances in the gut and the microbiome. So that leads to what we call dysbiosis. And then that can also allow that ecosystem in the gut to be more inflamed. So it can lead to things like leaky gut, where now we don't have this tight junctions holding together the gut cells, and they're separating, and it's allowing food, bacteria, and toxins to pass through, and it's stimulating the immune system where it's doing its job. It's going, wait, these are foreign things passing through, and it mounts an immune response. And then that can lead to things like ear infections where they start scratching at their ears. It can lead to inflammation elsewhere in the body, and they're over grooming because of that. Can lead to gut brain access issues where we have brain on fire. Now we have more anxiety and stress. And so we need to be looking at the diet. So if you have a cat where they're bringing up all these hairballs, and we're feeding a processed food diet, this kibble diet, as their main source of their food, we need to look at, okay, how can I transition to help them? Now, what I usually do is I help these cats process that food better by adding in things like digestive enzymes. That can be really helpful for them breaking down the proteins, the fats, the carbohydrates, so that it's they utilize it better if we are feeding them that. So then when we're transitioning them over to, say, like a canned food diet, which will be better, higher moisture, there's going to be less carbohydrates usually in those types of diets, or a freeze-dried diet, lightly cooked, we want to get away from high carb. So even with lightly cooked, we need to be careful of some of these lightly cooked diets that are high in like rice content. Our cats are not going out into the rice paddies and harvesting the rice in the wild, right? They're not. So we want to also be careful when we do switch to fresh food diets that yes, it will be better than a kibble diet, but we also need to be aware of what types of foods make up that diet. So raw food diets are great. We've talked a lot about raw food diets. There's a lot of great pre-made raw food diets that are fully balanced. This is not about you having to create your own diets and recipes and all those things. But this is where it's really important to make sure we're feeding a less processed diet, especially if you are seeing GI symptoms, especially if you're seeing allergies, and especially if you're seeing any like excess hairballs being produced. We need to get them away from those processed diets onto a more species appropriate diet. Now, this great question from Heidi. So good to see you. Do they need digestive enzymes if they're already on a wet canned food? This depends. If we are seeing a lot of like hairballs being produced and we're feeding, and this is where, depending on the type of the food that we're feeding, even canned food, we need to look for artificial ingredients. Carrageenan is a common preservative in a lot of canned foods, unfortunately, still today. That is a known GI irritant, meaning it creates inflammation in the gut. They actually use that chemical. So they're using it as like a thickener in the canned food, but they actually use it in studies for inflammatory bowel disease, where they'll actually inject it into the gut lining to create inflammatory bowel disease so they can do studies on it. So we don't want our cats eating that. We don't want anyone eating that, even yourself. Like, really important to look for that type of thickener on the ingredient list, so that way you can remove it from the diet and reduce the inflammation and help your cat digest properly. So it just depends. If you feel like a cat's having GI issues, make sure, for one, that we've removed inflammatory ingredients from the food. You can always try a digestive enzyme to help them process that food better and break it down. Tiki cat's usually pretty good, but definitely it's a good like exercise. I still do it anytime I buy cat food. For my own cats, I'm looking at the ingredient list because formulas can change, companies can be bought out and sold. So just a great reminder overall. Now, if you have a cat that is having issues and we need to support them, so this is where like my Kiwi cat personally, my senior cat who tends to have this issue every now and then, it's not all the time. I'm actually using some of these remedies when she goes through a bout where I'm like, oh, she's got a hairball. She brings it up and then I support her to help soothe inflammation, help her break it down, help that digestive tract. And this is where adding in a little bit of extra fiber can actually help provide lubrication, help those hairballs pass through the digestive tract to be passed out through the stool. And this is where doing canned pumpkin is really helpful. So just adding a teaspoon to the meal can make a huge difference for a lot of cats. Make sure it's unsweetened. So this is we're in the fall season. This is not the time and place for the sweetened like pumpkin pie filler. Just make sure it's unsweetened. It's just literally your canned pumpkin. You can even roast your own pumpkin if you want to and mash it all up. So a teaspoon to the meal. The other thing too that you can do, a lot of cats, if you were to let your cat outside and allow them to self-select what their bodies needed, a lot of cats are going to go and start chowing down on grass. And they're not chowing down on every piece of grass, right? They're looking for certain types of grass. And we take our Tico cat out who just roamed by. If you saw a little black tail kind of blending into the background, we take him outside for organized or supervised outdoor time because he was an outdoor cat. He loves it. It's really important for his emotional health. And so this is where we take him outside and I love watching him. He'll like self-select certain types of grasses and he eats it. And that's fantastic. I allow him to do that. It's an extra source of fiber. If you have indoor only cats, they have amazing little kits that you can order and you can grow your own grass, which is fantastic. And you can allow them to self-select if they want to eat that for a little bit of extra fiber to help support their gut. It's nice too. A lot of these types of grasses, especially like wheatgrass, has extra chlorophyll in it, which is also a nice full of nutrients and vitamins, minerals to help support your cat's overall health. Now, I am a big tea person. You can thank New Zealand for that, and kind of the British influence in tea time and all of that. It is really important. Like tea can be one of the easiest things that you use for your pets and even cats. You're like, how do I get my cat to drink a cup of tea, right? You can always put it down to allow them to self-select. Some cats will actually go and just drink it. So that's always an option. When I say tea, I'm talking about brew a cup of tea, remove the tea bag, allow it to cool, put it down and allow them to self-select. The other thing that you can do is you can put a little bit into their food and mix it up. So I add water to our raw food patties for my cats. So instead of just adding water, if I wanted to do this, I would add something like chamomile tea. Chamomile is very soothing for the GI tract. It's also very soothing for the emotional health. Nasli, you knew I was going to say chamomile, didn't you? It's great to see you here. And also, too, I love that you put, it's concerning that some vets say hairballs in cats and vomiting is normal. It is not. Hairballs can be normal every now and then. Vomiting without hairballs, we've got to think red lights, check engine lights, something's happening. So going back to the tea, chamomile tea is awesome. It's great if your cat is experiencing like itchiness and allergies. It can be used topically on the skin too if there's sores or they're over grooming or rashes. It's very soothing and calming. Now, here's the thing. If you brew it longer, if you brew that tea longer, you keep the tea bag in longer, it becomes more bitter. So if your cat's like, no, thank you. Cats are cats, right? Why I love them so much. This is where brew it for a shorter period of time. It'll be less bitter. So remove that tea bag, 30 seconds, remove tea bag. Okay, that's the water we use. You can keep the rest of it in the fridge for, a couple days, and then you'd want to brew a new cup of tea. So that's an awesome way of supporting them. There's also a great company called Cocoa Therapy for pets. MCT oil is my go-to. Try not to use mineral oil. I try to avoid using petroleum-based products. I know that's kind of like the conventional go-to. Well, let's use the more natural form that has less risk of side effects and adverse reactions. And we can use your MCT oil. This is the lubrication to help it pass. They also have coconut like chips and things for cats you can add to the diet. So that's a great other option that you have to use. And this is where you don't have to use all of these. These are things where like, give it a try, see if it works. If it's not working, try some of these other alternatives, making sure we're looking for the root cause. Is there some underlying issue that we haven't addressed that we need to address? Now, some of the big ones too, to help reduce inflammation that are also going to act as a lubricant are slippery elm and marshmallow root. These are really, they're a mucilage, so they're going to line the gut. So if we have something like leaky gut, if we have inflammation in the gut, this is where slippery elm and marshmallow are really helpful. Marshmallow root is a bit better because slippery elm is we're using it quite a bit, which is not good for the environment, and we don't want to lose all the slippery elm sources. So if you can select marshmallow root, I use mountain rose herbs to get marshmallow root in bulk. You can also brew a cup of tea and add that too. Keep in mind, if you're using these all the time and you're adding them to the food, your marshmallow and slippery elm coat the gut lining, and it can potentially impair the absorption of vitamins and minerals from the food and also other medications. So this is where I really like, there's a pet well-being product called Hairball Gold that combines a lot of these with also aloe vera together all in one product. It's a glycerin tincture, so it doesn't taste too bad. I've actually never tasted it. I could, but my cats who, especially Kiwi, I can actually just squirt it directly into her mouth away from food when I use that for her like hairball flare-ups. So it's really, really nice that you can definitely use that. And the throat coat tea, great question. It is in throat coat tea. So when you start looking at a lot of these, throat coat tea also has a lot of other things in it too. It wouldn't be my first go-to. I'd be using something like Pet Wellbeing Hairball Gold formula. You could also use Animal Essentials, has slippery elm and I believe marshmallow root on their own to use. They also have like a colon rescue. Also, if you have a cat that's prone to inflammatory bowel disease, one of our amazing members in our Blueprint program, she came to us, her cat was having IBD. It had never been properly addressed by the veterinarian she was working with. And we removed some of the things that were creating inflammation. We got the cat onto a better diet, and then we started the colon rescue, and that cat's doing much better and actually has beautifully formed stools now. So those two brands, what's nice is they combine those herbs, they're sourcing appropriately, and they make it to give much easier because it's in a glycerin tincture versus some of the alcohol based, which is how those herbs are extracted. So you're like, why are they using alcohol? That's how the herbs are extracted. So that's getting all the medicinal benefits from that plant. That's how it is extracted. So that's why you may see some like companies using that, which makes sense. So this is where I'd be using those two products. Now, to go back as a reminder, so for everyone here, this is recorded. You can go back and rewatch it. You want to make sure we're finding the root cause. And I keep repeating this because so many pet parents get stuck. You are trying supplement after supplement after supplement, and it is not working, and it keeps coming back. And the reason is because you miss the root cause or causes. And this is why I said the over grooming could be a stress. It could be a gut health issue, dysbiotic gut. It could be food sensitivities because we have a leaky gut issue. We need to find the root cause and understand how everything is interconnected. If you're like, I don't know how to do that, we have an entire Blueprint program that teaches you how to do that. If you're like, I just want to start with something different, Better Gut Health program is a self-paced program that you could always start with to help you better understand these interconnections and get your cat and your dog on the right path to healing those skin and gut issues. Skin issues usually are due to a gut health problem or an immune system problem. Those are closely connected. We have to start asking the question why. I know people like being told what to give, but that's the problem. That is the problem. We're using herbal medicine like we use conventional medicine, where we use a pill for every ill. We don't want to use an herb for every ill. We need to be using herbs for their beautiful energetic properties, the types of foods, the energetics in those foods to help heal the body and the underlying imbalance. Yes, we can use it for symptomatic care, but I want you to start shifting the way that you're thinking about it. This was the game changer in how I support my patients when I shifted how I think about the body. And it's harder, it takes longer, and it can be frustrating, right? But what's more frustrating is when you're spending all the money, throwing money out the window, and now you have a supplement graveyard. And 3 months down the road, your cat, your dog is itching more. They're throwing up more hairballs. And now we're seeing bile in it. And now they have loose stool. And now they're more anxious because all those layers kept building up because we just masked the symptoms because we weren't using the supplements appropriately. So make sure that we're identifying what those root imbalances are. We have so many free videos and resources to get you started. And if you need additional help and support, send us an email, info@thenaturalpetdoctor.com. We do free calls to see if our programs are a good fit or if there's some other better solution that we don't provide. Whether it's with us or with someone else, I just want your pets and your to get better and for you to feel confident and supported you are on the right path. That is the most important thing to me for you. So I hope you found that helpful. If you have a kitty that's having hairball issues or you're having chronic GI issues, chronic skin issues, definitely reach out to us. This is an area that we specialize in to help you feel more confident and supported and really empowered that you are on the right path to healing your pet's root imbalances to help them live their most vibrant, healthiest lives. I will see you all again next week. I'm like, what week is it? Oh my goodness, we're almost to November. Next week for our next coffee talk with the doc. Until then, keep learning, keep taking action, and remember to ask the question why. I'm Dr. Katie Woodley, the Natural Pet Doctor. Take care.